Okay, welcome back. I had a little bit of indiscipline around here, so I think let's get back on track. Good, thank you, fellows. We have a goodwill message which was delayed from Danida, and we're going to present it now. 1 minute goodwill message from Danida. Thank you.
Greetings from Denmark. The Danida Fellowship Center administers research grants for development research from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Denmark. In this process, we are highly dependent on resourceful and skilled partners in the countries where research projects are supported. We have worked together with Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences since 2013. Together, the Danida Fellowship Center and Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences facilitate valuable learning opportunities for Ghanaian researchers across institutions and fields of study involved in Danida-funded research projects. Most recently, for example, we together organized a seminar on science for the public, bringing together Ghanaian researchers funded by Danida and Ghanaian journalists. On behalf of the entire Danida Fellowship Center, heartfelt congratulations to Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences on your 60th anniversary of serving Ghana in advancement and dissemination of knowledge. We look forward to many more years of fruitful collaboration. Greetings from Denmark. The Danida Fellowship Center administers
Good. Thank you very much. That was a goodwill message from Danida. Right. Now we have two presentations before lunch. And the first presenter is Dr. Kibadiri Kola Mogochi. Did I get that right? Good. And she'll be talking on strengthening policy and science interface in research and development of climate-smart emerging crops in Botswana. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, I'm losing breath. Okay. Yes, I am from Botswana, representing Botswana Academy, and you will be hearing a lot of things that we have done so far, particularly on research and development on climate-smart emerging crops. My colleague yesterday called them underutilized grains, and he talked about cereals and legumes. Today, I'm going to be talking largely on dicots. I'm a bit shaky on talking about the monocots, but he addressed that very well yesterday. And most of the things that I'm going to be talking about are actually what we usually refer to as grassroots science. Sometimes you feel like the fact that you've gone to school, we are the ones who know what science is all about. But our communities more than we do. And that's some of the things that I'm going to be presenting here today. Oh, it's not moving. Okay, it moved. The presentation outline is going to be on introduction to the climate-smart emerging crops. And here we're just talking about our indigenous plant species. We are going to be looking at the key messages on this. We are going to look at the methodologies, and methodologies are going to be basically the activities that we've done so far to be able to come up with the results that you're going to be sharing, and you're going to be looking at those results. And one of the most important results is going to be, is going to be on the strengthening science policy interface, because we believe that things are not working because scientists are talking alone, policymakers are speaking alone. We don't have any place where we sit together and talk about what we should be doing for poverty alleviation. In Botswana, we call it poverty eradication, because you are trying to be a bit, what can I say? Anyway, I'll get the word. But we are thinking that if we are going to alleviate it, who is going to be left behind? Why don't we just aim to eradicate it? Because even the SDG 1 or 2, they're talking about zero hunger. So when you're talking about zero hunger, you're talking about completely making everything disappear so that you can live a better life for your people. So by introduction, Botswana is endowed with over 3,000 indigenous plant species, And these are resilient to climate change. They have the ability to enhance soil health. They have the ability to reverse biodiversity erosion, because that we have done. We've cut them down to make place for new or conventional crops. And also we are saying they can also contribute to the combating diversification. They have a great potential to improve incomes, food security, nutrition security, and to combat malnutrition that my sister was talking about yesterday, that you all talked about a lot yesterday, for eradicating poverty. And we believe that we can actually be able to diversify the economy of Botswana, as well as diversify the crop base. Because right now we are growing, out of all those 3,000, ask me how many are Botswana or of Botswana origin? None. Most of them are exotic, or all of them are exotic. And what we have done so far has been largely externally funded, except maybe for paying me a salary. My government has not really made it a habit of funding this research on our indigenous in emerging crops that we are talking about. There is lack of capacity for research and development, information communication. We are not talking to each other. Policymakers are there, and scientists are somewhere else, and our work is just to teach students, and they go out and follow our steps. And there's no support for that in the production, value adding, marketing, and even conservation of this, even about the uses of the plant species. You're talking about uses of maize, you're talking about maize of sorghum, millet, and we don't have those. They are not ours. They come from somewhere else. And therefore, we also believe that improved science policy interface will ease the incorporation and adoption and utilization of these crops, of these plants. And more than anything else, because we have policies, if we talk about them, they also have the potential to contribute to our national strategies and international policies and protocols and programs like SDGs and so on and so forth. Some of them are so beautiful. Here I'm showing this a tree, Schizophortin retinae. It's all over Africa. You crush it, you get that. You crush it, you get that. And we have the one that my brother mentioned yesterday, Murama bean. That's how it looks in the world. That's the seed, the Murama bean seed. You can make oil. This is the oil from Murama. You can make milk. You can make snack, just like more than what you can do with soybean. We have our truffles, the Kalahari truffles that are found in the Kalahari Desert, but also we have the Saharans. Can you imagine a kilogram of these? Actually, internationally, the black truffles of France and the white truffles of Italy, you're talking about €1,000 per kilogram. Let me tell you, these ones people come and take them for free in Botswana. They will give you 50 pula, which is 50 divided by 12 is how much? Yeah, that's happening to our resources. And of course, we have this also is Bohemia petersiana. I know it's all over Africa. And the beauty of this flower at night, the perfume that comes from there is unmeasurable. We have the watermelon family, and this one is also one of them. It is rich. The Japanese took it and they decided, came to Botswana for research, and then from there they made products. And somebody was talking about things which are done somewhere yesterday. And our colleagues come and get our materials, they go to their countries, they do the analysis, and they take and even patent them. The Japanese have patented something from this, and they call it GAAS. This one is called Hoodia. You have read about it in the news, where it's supposed to be very good in taking care of diabetes, hypertension, and obesity. And we have this one also, and they're beautiful also when you find them in the bush, but you don't care about them. So we're talking about making these our new crops, emerging crops, and we think we can do that. We have done a lot of research on these. And this is when they appear in the wild, you can grow them in the field, you can have products. These are oils from 4 of them, and products that you can get from them. And these are the roots. I'll show you also as you go on when you look at some of the things about this. So key messages are very clear. I've already mentioned those. But here we are going to be talking largely about lack of policy, because policy framework is very important. Also the involvement of women and youth, also the indigenous knowledge system that our people possess, and also the R&D that needs to be funded from the national budget. In Botswana, we don't have that. Yes, as I also said, they offer opportunities to combat climate change, desertification, and so on and so forth. And you also can have niche in the markets for economic diversification, and we need to be able to register them in any way possible. We have done some kind of registering. We have a book here that I don't know where, because it's only one, and I think we are more than 100. I don't know who's going to get it. I will think about it as I go on with the presentation, how we're going to handle that part. Methodology, I've already said that they were all externally funded, money to do them, even though maybe I was given, my salary was taken care of, and we have done a lot. We have had projects where we were collecting seeds, aiming at collecting at least 25% of Botswana flora. That has been done. We have worked with communities to prioritize the ones that they think we should do research on, and also experiments on cultivation and training and value adding have been done. We have, because we are talking about policy, we have looked at policies which are there, and as researchers and policymakers don't want to interface them. They are there in Botswana. And you also ran a scan review of what is relevant and what we should be doing. So policy objectives implementations have been produced, and as I said, we have produced a book of 20 species so far with these projects, and capacity building also has been done, and yeah, we think we have done so far so good. Yes, we have results which have been shared there. The communities have told us which ones they want us to work on. Each community came up with its own list. We talked about, at least between 2008 and 2012, we talked to almost 50 communities in Botswana. And most of them were talking about Marama. Thysolema esculentum is appearing in most of what all communities have said, but each one of them have talked about what they wanted to be done. And when you ask them, why are these important? They told us that they use them for different things, and also they produce different things. So these are the products that the communities told us they can be produced from those. And can you imagine where you can have milk, butter, snack, flour, also they cover the soil and they reserve the nutrients. Some of them, they say they can make alcohol from them. Some of them, they're talking about seed oil, they make pickles, and so on and so forth. So farmers, people, communities were telling us that they were doing this. And another thing that we have decided to do, we have decided to keep the local names. Because when we have to tell somebody that these are ours, we have to be telling them that these are ours and you call them this, where we come from. Don't want to keep on saying that I call this and you're still speaking somebody else's language about our resources. And yeah, we continue with that. There are a lot of them. I'll skip that. And also, because there are many, they told us a lot of ones. And one other thing about street resources is that you can see that for this one, this Marama, we have done a lot of ground truthing, and you can see how it's spread in the country. Another one is only about this air part in the country. Another one, this is just an example of how they are. The important thing is that that geographical distribution also tells us where they are and how they are used by the communities around that area. You'll find that people who are in the south, for example, don't know much about Mongongo, Schizophyton rotini. So, but these people here use it so much that they make dark out canoes, they make oil, they make alcohol, they can tell you all the stories, even the traditional beliefs about that plant. So this is what you are saying, that these are very important and science should take it seriously and look at it too. They are here again. This is just an example of what they told us. This one is Zemenia Kafra, and this is the oil for Marama, and this is the soil enrichment that we talked about. We took one and enrich the soil to grow sorghum, is growing. We have this one that we said you can actually get 1 kilogram can go for. This was in 2012 when I was told the story that actually it goes for 1,000 euro. I'm sure now it's more than that. And then this is the other one that I said is known by the people in the north. This is how they use it to make meat. They crush it, and the skin is, the husk is very hard. So they have a technology themselves, indigenous technology for crushing it, and then from there they use it to extract oil a little bit, and they put meat. So we came to them and said, why don't you then use cold press and get the oil out of it and be able to utilize it a little bit better? So they agreed. They said, yes, let's do research on that. And one of the important things is that this seed is 57% oil. And a lot of times we are not even talking about that. So this is an example of Murama bean. What it can do, it can continue. Now this is the research results that was funded by EU, Murama 2, and it was a collaborative research with Botswana, Namibia, South Africa, and Europe. And these are the things that were produced from it, just that side is not that much. And the methods which are used, and that's why they said it can be done now by the research work that was done by University of Pretoria, University of Botswana, and University of Namibia, and other universities in Europe. Continue, that's what it goes. And we have also experimented in growing them. And this is an agroforestry plot integrated with the trees. And this is the seedlings that were growing at the Botswana College of Buang, Botswana University of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And they're still there. And these are the seeds that the communities are buying and selling. And they're very expensive in our culture. The uses of these traditional uses, some of them are used for water. Remember, in Botswana, we have the San people who actually are nomadic, and they know where these are. And part of the things that they do is that some of the trees they use because they keep water in this the holes in the tree, and that's yours truly getting water from there. We're in the desert, we're very thirsty. I had to drink water, and we're working with the community leader that had taken me to the bush to show me where I can easily get water. So they in the community had planted this, but we tried to plant them around for research and development, and that's what we did. And these are the one of the Murama again, we planted it, and these are better than sweet potato because they are very high in protein content. And these are the ones that you can take them from the bush and still grow them around your garden and make money out of them, and also domesticate and commercialize them. So we have done capacity building. Now, the important thing about this topic that was just a premise is that we are talking about strengthening policy and science interface. We are using these two premises that science policy interface, we're talking about the interaction between scientists and policymakers to enhance science-based policy decision to develop policy relevant to scientific research, or it can even be a social process. We have talked to the communities, we have talked to policymakers, even though we don't never really sit together, but we are saying we can still try to be able to do that. So through these projects, we also looked at all the policies that we thought were important to what we are doing. And we looked at the policies, FAO policies, climate smart agriculture, intentional trade on plant genetic resources for food and agriculture. What they are saying, yes, they are talking about commercialization of underutilized species. Yes, they are talking about conservation agricultural orientation to support development of food security under challenging climate. We looked at the CBD, the famous Nagoya Protocol, talking about also registering these and not just taking other people for granted. For example, in our countries in Southern Africa, we have the Basaro community, we have the Kalahari community, and then we have other people who think they are better than they, and they know nothing. These ones who think they are better know nothing about these plants, and they don't even know how to use them. So are we going to be taking that information and using it as ours? No, we are saying we can't do that, and we are very serious about that. We also looked at the Agenda 2030 and aligning it to, because there's been allowed to in the NDP 11, the Vision 2036, we think also there's our entry point to be able to say we can actually interface science and policy and be able to support research and development on these plans. And we looked at the communities. We talked to the communities as well. We looked at the policies that are there, the community-based national resource management policy that also talks about the importance of these crops and also indigenous knowledge and the rights of breeders. Sometimes we breeders are not even looked at. When you talk about your right as a breeder, you're told, what are you talking about? And I've come up with innovation. Can you just look at my innovation? No, it will be looked at if it comes out by somebody else. We have the policy, forestry policy. We have the Vision 2036 and NDP 11, as I said. These are the policies that we are saying we should be interfacing them with our work, or interfacing our work with them, whatever I can say first. And then we also did a scan where we looked at different activities in Botswana, the Ministry of Agriculture, the funding entities, the universities that are supposed to be working on capacity building, research and development, also the universities and research departments. Like this one is the one that is talking about food technology and research. And then we have extension, we have value addition. This one works with export market and so on and so forth. We were saying these are the places where we should also be sitting down and talking as scientists. We should not just be doing our proposals and doing our work without talking to these people. And we came up with policy recommendations. We are thinking that to promote this cultivation value addition, yes, we'll be actually interfacing it with these policies. We should also be talking about interdisciplinary research teams to be able to work together for cultivation, product development, and commercialization. Research should be funded by our government from the start so that we can be able to diversify our crop base. We should establish value chains for species in consultation with the knowledge holders. These knowledge holders are good. They will tell you a lot about the things that you don't know. And in Botswana, you've been hearing about the elephants and the nations and everything. They know how an elephant shouldn't attack you. And we don't want to take that information and use it. They've taught me. They've also taught me how to look for truffles. Remember, in Europe, when they look for truffles, they use pigs and dogs. Some of those, I'm the one who found them. Look and say the truffles are here in the ground. So I also think that you should promote species enterprises, particularly championed by women and youth. We should establish risk management strategies in cooperation with the species intercropping systems, because they could also bring pests. Yesterday we heard about the pest of cassava, we heard about the pest of that. They're also capable of bringing those into that cultural system. And he said you should strengthen capacity. We should strengthen capacity for institutions as well as people, and we should also take inventory of the abundance of this. And quickly, these are our conclusions. Botswana government should incorporate and facilitate conducive environment for science and policy interface. I think it is upon us to be able to talk about that as government. Fortunately, now we have a new parliament that is made up of new people, and most of them are scientists. We hope we'll be able to interface that. Policymakers and scientists should come together and talk. We should talk to each other if we're going to be doing anything like this. And also, in conclusion, I also have to, one other thing that I didn't mention is that the government has just established a new entity. It's called the National Agricultural Research and Development Institute, that we hope by establishing that also will provide opportunity for scientists and policymakers to come together to synergize relevant policies for agricultural innovation. That will strengthen our research and development in these plans. I'm finishing by saying those are the selected literature, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The presentation is open for questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a little concern for the breeders. Usually when things are harvested from the wild, they have a different taste. When breeders come in and start breeding, the product, what the indigenous people say that, well, it's not quite like, the old one. For instance, we have that problem in animal science. People at the village will say that your 8-week-old broiler, it doesn't taste like the one in the village that has been running around for 1 year and was only half the size of yours. Or the grass cutter you are breeding, it's not quite like the one you harvest from the wild. The snail that you are breeding or you are rearing, it's not tasty like the one that you just pick from the bush. So these things that you are trying to improve upon, in the end, or what you have, your improved varieties, are they quite acceptable to the natives, or you are basically thinking of export? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you just confirm, did you state that within Botswana there is a movement to ensure that the seeds of indigenous crops are protected? And then you also indicated that apparently the seeds are also taken to a place you were calling the Royal Botanical something in Kew. Where is that? And if they are taking these resources outside of the country without an MOU, then who is eventually going to be the benefit? Are we not losing our rights? Just confirm that to me. Then I also, but I was very excited with this Morama. Did you remember what she said? It's 1,000 euro per kilo. Can you imagine the price when you now extract the active ingredients? You double the price, you triple the price, and so on. By the way, when the price is stated like that, how much of that goes to the communities? Because the communities are the ones who own the intellectual knowledge about that plant.
Let me first of all thank the presenter for the nice presentation. The only thing I was just wondering, have you been profiling these crops on safety? Because on the human, you have to look at the food and also the safety aspect. Because we know some of these plants are very good, they are very nutritious, but on the other hand, we know that you need to be careful because they also have got chemicals which can be harmful to the humans in the long term. So I'm asking about the safety, whether has been thought about or just on the nutrition or food aspect only. Thank you.
Okay, the last one I'll leave it to Prof. Where are you? Okay, different tastes from those in the bush. I agree. There are different tastes from those from the bush. They're just like the same thing. The hybrids have different tastes from the land races, isn't it? So that one, yes, I agree, and it's something that we should deal with. But one other thing that I always say to all of us with all due respect, the rice that you are eating every day here, even at breakfast, once upon a time it was in the bush. So it was brought into cultivation by someone. So to us in Botswana, we feel like at least we should also be having something into cultivation from our wild. And it's not only in Botswana. This morning I was struggling to get the origin of cocoa. Where does cocoa come from? Does it originate in West Africa? Oh, it's exotic. Brazil. But it's wild in Brazil, isn't it? But now we're making money with it in Africa. So can we Africans at one point say this is our plant? I mean, I showed you the Citrullus lunatus, the watermelon. The watermelon origin is in, they'll tell you the Kalahari Desert. But you can see it, it's not all over the Kalahari Desert. You only see it either in Botswana or in Namibia. But that is the origin of all the watermelons that you are using. It doesn't matter where you go, read about watermelon, it originates in the Kalahari Desert. So basically all I'm saying is that we do have these things that originate from our countries, and they were taken by some people to their countries and they call them theirs. There's another relative of watermelon. We call it Mukapani in Botswana. It was taken by the Israelis and researched it in Israel, and then they didn't want to eat it. They sent it to Japan. Do you know what it's called in Japan? The name is even changed. It's not called Kawino in Japan, but it comes from our desert. So basically I'm saying everything Bagaitsu came from the bush. Bagaitsu means my preference, came from the bush at one time, even the cow. Seed protection, there is a very strong MOU, sir, that actually went as far as the cabinet. I don't mince my words when I talk about the protection of my people. I'm protecting from even myself. So the MOU came, the access benefit sharing MOU came, and it was scrutinized in the country from my institution to the ministry to cabinet. And it was seen by all the lawyers who were there, and it's still there. It's still being utilized. Another thing is that in that MOU, together with the writing of this book, because the same group of people that we end up writing this book is Kenya, South Africa, Mali, Mexico, and Botswana. We also have decided, we told them that you cannot take, we are recording our IP here, so that nobody will end up and saying these things came from the UK, because they are ours. We had to write this book about our research work and put the information here. So information is kept, and they cannot use those seeds without consulting us. One other thing is that it's not the only bank that you have, the seed bank that you have at Q. There's the SADC seed bank, where all SADC countries bank the seeds in Zambia, at the Zambia seed bank, the SADC seed bank, but part of it is taken to the Noik bank in Norway, I think. So this is just for safekeeping. The agreement is that nobody should even steal those seeds without talking to us. So we don't know. I can't tell that they have not done it, but for these ones I know it has not been done. Even this morning I sent them a message. I said, hey, I'm going to face this question as if I knew. What am I going to tell people about those seeds that you are banking with you? So we are really taking care of that. Safety. Murama Professor, can you help me with the safety of the plants? What is he hiding? Sorry. Can you? He's not in. Professor Jojo from Pretoria. Can you talk about safety of the products, sir? What did we do? I'm not alone, I'm with him. He's hiding from me. About safety of this, are we safe? Can they be used?
Yeah, the question I had was about whether we've looked into toxicity of these.
Yes.
Yeah, well, with the work we've done some work looking at more the anti-nutritional factors, and some can also be referred to as toxic factors. So we've looked at things like trypsin inhibitors, we've looked at saponins, we've looked at alkaloids, and so on and so forth. But I mean, a lot of these things, by the time you process, you would have gotten rid of them anyway, so there was no concern there.
Yeah. So I just wanted to come from somebody's, the other horse's mouth, not me. Yeah?
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I think we can continue this during lunch. We'll go on to the next presentation. Let's give her a clap. Thank you very much. You're welcome to look at it. Okay, so our next presenter is Dr. Hamidou Touare from Burkina Faso, and he's talking to us on contribution of multi-stakeholder innovation platforms in achieving food security and improving farmers' income in Burkina Faso. Thank you.
so I will keep it. Okay, thank you. My presentation is about the contribution of multi-stakeholder innovation platform in achieving food security and improving farmers' income in Burkina Faso. This is the outline of my presentation. I will give a brief presentation of my institute and move toward the agricultural technological innovation in Burkina Faso with the concept, and I will show a case study of the maize innovation platform of Leo and conclude. INERA is one of the 4 institutes of the National Center of Scientific and Technological Research in Burkina Faso, and we are actually implementing the second strategic research plan of CNRST, and Burkina Faso has implemented its WAP, the West African Agricultural Productivity Program, and also the WAP has generated throughout the Koraf area many technologies, both in the field of production and processing, and to disseminate these technologies, the WAP and other development projects in Burkina Faso have adopted the multi-stakeholder innovation platform approach. Here you have INERA on the map. You have the regional direction of research, environmental and agricultural research, the eastern one, the Sahelian one, northwestern one, the western one, and the central one. And you have a training environmental and agricultural research center at Kambwense, at 10 kilometers away from Ouagadougou. And I will jump these INERA's roles, and we have the management entities, the government entities like the scientific and management council, the direction committee, the regional center management committee, the program commission, and some technical committees based on if there are burning issues at regional level or at national level, will hold the regional or national committee. INERA actually is 18 research program organized around 5 scientific departments. We have here the 5 departments, and the recently created department is the National Center of Specialization in Fruit and Vegetable, based on the WAP. Starting from 2011, we created this department. We also have some central laboratories, and actually we have almost 260 researchers with 170 with PhD level. This research strategy of INERA will start from research to farm with the basic research, strategic and methodological research, applied research, research development, and extension and farm advice with the extension services, and we'll finish with the production. We have now the agricultural technological innovation in Burkina Faso. We have the concept and definition. The innovation is a social, organizational, and technical process or knowledge that a community implements to improve their livelihood from the income of this process or knowledge. And this will include improved process, improve high yield crop varieties, productive animal race, water management practices, soil fertility management, and marketing processes. And the innovation platform defined from the IAR4D is the grouping actor on a dynamic and systemic approach, which take into account the complexity of the constraint affecting actors' production, marketing, and sustainability to design opportunity that help bring solution. and create good interaction between research and development along a given value chain. From the beginning, 2008 to now, we have actually, we have actually 48 innovation platforms in Burkina Faso. Some are active, almost 40, 4 inactive, and for 4 others we don't have for now information. And it's that we have a non-timber forest product. We have here the maize grain, the famous maize grain innovation platform I will talk about during my presentation. And we have also a policy platform. So under the initiative of One World, No Hunger, with the German government, ZEF, University of Bonn, the FARA, Forum of Agricultural Research in Africa, and 12 African countries were engaged in this program called Program for Accompanying Research for Agricultural Innovation. And the project called Promotion of Science Program and Technology for Agricultural Development in Africa, PSTDA, founded by AFDB, was implemented in Burkina Faso and also in other African countries with CORAF coordinating in his area. And Burkina Faso, we had 2 components from this project: the Donata, dissemination of new agricultural technologies in Africa, and the Regional Agricultural Information and Learning System, the RAILS. And the project focused on maize, how to develop the maize value chain. And 2 factors guide the choice of Leo. Leo is a city in the southwestern part of Burkina Faso, close to Ghana border, to implement the Donata project. The province of Sicily is a maize growing province by excellence. There we had an organization called Fédération Nuanzé. It was called Provincial Federation of Agricultural Professionals in Sicily, FEPASI, and the leaders of this organization, in partnership with the research, they used to do advocacy to solve their problem. Thus, the maize IP of Leo was established in 2008. From that date, INERA conducted a pilot innovation multi-stakeholder platform on the value chain of maize. This innovative platform is one of the first practical implementation of experience of AIR4D, and the researcher from INERA facilitated the implementation of these IPs. And through regular meeting between actors in the value chain of maize, many demonstrative tests have been regularly conducted and serve as training school for farmer and community members. So INERA was empowered in Burkina Faso to provide the necessary support to implement AIR4D, and we have analyzed the situation of agricultural innovation in the country, study the scope of existing agricultural innovation platform, provide a synthesis of lessons learned from such platform by various initiatives in the country, and the maize IP of Leo was set alongside the value chain. You have here the composition of the participant in the IP of Leo. Please. Can I have the, yes, here you have all the members of the platform, starting from the policy leaders, policy maker, the haut commissaire is the head of the province, and the FEPASI, the organization, farmer organization. You have INERA, IRSAT, and also the representative of the different ministries on the ground, the Association of Cereal Transformers, some bank, You have the radios. Can you scroll down? Okay. The next slide. You have EcoBank, you have Sidwaya, which is a daily newspaper of Burkina Faso. The next slide. And the IP created in 2008, driven by the processors as a main objective to improve the income drawn from the production. In fact, the IP strengthened the capacity of processors to place higher quality product with greater value added to satisfy the consumer's requirement. The Sicily Innovation Platform enabled Nwanze, the association, to grow from an average yield, or they started from 1.5 ton to 2 ton per hectare when we arrived in 2008, to reach 5 ton per hectare with this maize variety we saw before. It's called Bondofa, which is a hybrid created by INERA, and resulting in a production estimated of 12,000 grain maize and 220 ton of seed the association produced. And the substantial increase in production has thus contributed to the achievement of food security in the Nwanze Federation, and they marketed the surplus grain and seed, making it possible to reach 400 million CFA francs. It was at that time, 2011, around 1,000 million dollars. So the IP members meet regularly during the agricultural campaign, and on the spin-out of the exchange is the contracting. They will contract all the members in the value chain, which is a key element for the durability. The maize IP of Leo was visited by many CORAF member countries from Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana. Many CORAF member countries came to visit this experience. At the 3rd Scientific Week and the 10th General Assembly of CORAF held in Jamena in 2012, the maize IP of Leo was awarded the best IP in the region. However, the major challenges of IP after the implementation remain their functionality, and the main factor limiting their sustainability are either internal or external. There is the low income for the household and difficult access to technologies, difficult organization which does not facilitate expression of local demand supply. You have the limited financial autonomy of the farmer organization affecting the activities, the high cost of IP implementation, the animation. You have to meet regularly, maybe twice a month during all the campaigns, so it's sometimes difficult. The external factors, you have the low level of farmers' education and technical skill, the weakness of intra and inter-institutional support, the low internal funding for agricultural research leading to strong dependence on external funds. As I said earlier, we started with this WAP project. The WAP project actually is finished in Burkina Faso, so the IP is struggling to continue the activities in Leo province. So the national strategy for agricultural extension actually doesn't take into account the IP concept to scale up the technologies on the ground. So in conclusion, from 2008 to now, 48 innovation platforms set up in Burkina Faso. The very successful are the maize IP in Leo, the cowpea IP in another one province in the northern part called Kongusi, was awarded the best IP in ECOWAS region in 2015 at the ECOWAS Plus 10 meeting in Dakar. The rice IP in the province of Hue, the Kilishi is dry meat from, we used to import from Niger, but actually in Kupela, you can find nice dry kilishi in Kupela. The milk IP in the province of Komoe, and the mango IP in the province of Hue. The major achievements are knowledge acquisition, organizational capacity building, facilitation of access to finance with the bank around, increase of production, improvement of producers' income, construction of a mutually beneficial and equitable synergy between the key actors of the project of the maize value chain of Sicily. But the next step will be to ensure that the entire country is implementing IP on several value chains, and the results are spread out to ensure quantitative and qualitative food security, thus reaching sustainability of socio-economic development of Burkina Faso. With that, I will thank all these institutions, the GAAS, NASAC, the Burkina Faso Academy of Science and Arts, my institute, CNRC IRSAT, and the donors for this IP in Leo. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for the presentation. My question is, if you are asked one single most important factor in the success of IPs, what would it be? One single most important factor in success of IPs. Thank you.
Take two other questions. Kindly answer that while we
Yes. Okay, I think one single aspect of the success will be these farmers were started from 1.5 to 2 tons of maize per hectare, and they couldn't reach what can I say, food sufficiency in the area, and collaborating with the research, knowing that at INERA we have good varieties of maize available. We brought these varieties there. These people actually, they are self-sufficient in the production of maize, and they can also get surplus. And we success to link the producers to the market. And actually, you have some transformers from processors from Ouagadougou going until Leo to contract some product during the campaign. So at the end of when they harvest, they are sure that there is a market in Ouagadougou to take the production to go and transform some, and also many actors are involved in this innovation platform. And we did a lot of communication also, which is one aspect which is very important, and also the involvement of the bank in this process. I think they reached the food security, and actually the president of the association, sometime he will they will interview at the TV or the radio. He will say that he just went to elementary school, but actually he has a nice house in definitive material. He has a car. He has a TV, everything you can have when you are in Ouagadougou or in the city of Leo, but is living in a small village close to Leo. So the IP helped these people, I think, move forward for the food security and also increase their income.
Thank you very much. We're making good time. 2 registrants are still to come in. So we're shifting one afternoon presentation to now. So we'll have one from 12 to 12:30 before we go for lunch. So we're asking Dr. and he's agreed. We're not imposing. He's agreed to be shifted. So we're asking, thank you very much. Dr. Filani Moyo from South Africa. Thank you. And he is going to talk to us on climate smart agriculture, resilience building, and food security in the Eastern Cape, South Africa. Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. As you just heard, my name is Pilani Moyo. I'm based in South Africa, and I'm a sociologist by training. So the presentation that I'm gonna be doing here must be viewed from that intellectual premise, from a sociological perspective. So I wanted to state that up front so we all understand where I'm coming from. So the title of my presentation is Climate Smart Agriculture, Resilience Building, and Food Security in the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape is one of the provinces in South Africa. It's one of the biggest in terms of land mass, but it has got so many challenges in terms of its economic base, and so forth. As a way of introduction, I think there is no need for me to reiterate what we all know in terms of the impacts of climate change globally. We know that it is affecting different aspects of human development, and we also know that the current global warming that we're experiencing is unprecedented, and it is directly changing our rainfall patterns, our temperatures, our sea levels, ecosystems, and biodiversity. And within South Africa, a lot of work has been done to document the actual impacts of climate change. And this work has been done by the South African Weather Service, as well as the Agricultural Research Council, in collaboration with other international organizations such as the Climatic Research Unit in the UK. And also a lot of scholars have done research in this field and documented actual climate impacts in different communities. And based on that, there is now irrefutable evidence that extreme weather events in South Africa are increasing, with heat wave conditions found to be more likely, dry spell conditions lengthening, and rainfall intensity increasing in some areas. So there is that dichotomy where you have some areas that are experiencing frequent and intense drought, while some areas are actually experiencing increased rainfall intensity. And a good example of that is parts of KwaZulu-Natal, where there is Durban, the city that probably most of us are aware of. In the last decade or so, flooding has been a big problem in different parts of KwaZulu-Natal. Early this year, around March, April, there was a lot of flooding which affected different public infrastructure, as well as different human settlements and the transport systems, and obviously the livelihoods of people. And that is just a picture there which shows the aftermath of flooding sometime early this year in northern Durban. Then in terms of drought, again, there is an increasing frequency of drought conditions in the farming provinces of Limpopo, Northern Cape, Free State, Eastern and Western Cape provinces. And that picture there demonstrates the very dry conditions that farmers have to deal with, as well as the dry conditions that the livestock has to endure. And obviously, with these drought conditions, it means food production has been negatively affected. It is also obvious that so many farmers, both commercial and subsistence, are losing a lot of their livestock due to the dry weather conditions. And the direct negative outcome of that is obviously reduced food access, especially for subsistence and smallholder farmers in the outlying rural areas. And then at the urban scale, obviously if there is reduced production at the farm gate, it means the food prices are about to increase in urban markets. Right, given that context, so what has the South African government done and what is it doing to address these impacts of climate change and try to build adaptation capacity and resilience? It has done quite a number of things, and I'm highlighting there 3 key aspects of interventions at national level, which then cascade to provincial and local government level. The first one is we have the National Climate Change Response Policy. We also have the National Climate Change Adaptation Strategy of 2017. And early this year in June, the National Assembly passed the Carbon Tax Act. And in very brief terms, there is one aspect of the National Climate Change Adaptation Strategy that I want to highlight. The strategy acknowledges a fundamental problem in terms of how the national and provincial governments and private entities are trying to build adaptation to climate change. It says various role players at national, provincial, and local government level, as well as civil society, the private sector, and the national system of innovation, while they continue to build the country's resilience to climate change, they are doing so without a common reference point. What that essentially means is there is no coordination whatsoever in terms of how resilience to climate change impacts is being done at a national level, at a provincial level, as well as at a local government level. So this is a disconnect that is clearly acknowledged by the government itself in the National Climate Change Adaptation Strategy. And later on, you'll begin to see why I'm raising this point when I begin to talk about what local people are doing themselves in the different communities. And then briefly as well, I want to highlight what the new Carbon Tax Act is all about. This new act under section 4.1 says that the carbon tax must be levied in respect of the sum of greenhouse gas emissions of a taxpayer in respect of a tax period expressed as the carbon dioxide equivalent of those greenhouse gas emissions resulting from fuel combustion and industrial processes and fugitive emissions in accordance with the emissions factors determined in accordance with the reporting methodology approved by the National Department of Environmental Affairs. This is a new act that came into effect in June this year. So what our Department of Environmental Affairs is doing is to craft a very clear methodology of how this carbon tax is going to be levied, especially on big companies. That is your manufacturing companies, your airlines, and all sorts of them. So that is going to be implemented fully once the Department of Environmental Affairs has come up with a monitoring and implementation and monitoring methodology. So within that broad national context, I'm moving now to the local context so that we get a sense of what local people, what local farmers are doing in an environment where there seems to be a lot of policy disconnect, as I highlighted earlier on. So what we've found in a research project that we did in the Eastern Cape province is that local people, specifically subsistence farmers, are adapting to climate change through their own agency. And they are doing so by utilizing local assets. By local assets here, I'm referring to your human, physical, natural, social, and financial capital that is existent in the different subsistence farming communities. And in the Eastern Cape, many of these asset-based adaptation strategies have been initiated and are implemented by households as they adapt to the negative impacts of climate change. And some of these strategies range from change in crop management, such as sowing time, to change in cropping systems and land use to adjust to new climate realities. This really touches and builds on what has been raised earlier on by other people who presented on these changes in farming practices that are occurring in different parts of Southern Africa. But in addition to what the households are doing themselves, what different development partners and other government departments have tried to do is to introduce subsistence farming communities to specific aspects of climate-smart agriculture. And when we talk of climate-smart agriculture, we are referring to a system which tries to transform and reorient agricultural systems to support food security under the new realities of climate change. What CSA, which is Climate Smart Agriculture, tries to do is to integrate the new climate change realities into the planning and implementation of sustainable agricultural practices. It also encourages the implementation of flexible and local context-specific solutions to increase crop and livestock production within current climate realities. And I want to emphasize and underline local context-specific solutions. And you'll realize why I'm saying so as I move forward. So many subsistence farmers in our area of study in the Eastern Cape are now practicing these CSA strategies that were introduced in their communities by different development partners in an attempt to increase productivity and build resilience. And based on these CSA practices, what we have done as a research group, in collaboration and in partnership with the local farmers, is to develop what we call the climate smart village approach. And this climate smart village approach is a local customization of the original model developed by the Climate Change, Agriculture and Food Security Research Program of one of the universities in Netherlands. I think they also got it from somewhere, but we took their model and then we adapted that model to the local conditions in partnership with local farmers in the Eastern Cape. So through this climate smart village approach, which we abbreviate to CSV, we're arguing that local Eastern Cape communities, not all of them, some of them, have got proven and effective CSA practices that are helping them to adapt to climate change impacts without direct assistance from government departments. So our CSV approach promotes local, incremental adaptation and transformative options while building local capacities to continue to innovate, experiment, and adapt to the impacts of climate change. And our CSV approach is informed by local evidence of farming practice effectiveness. It is an empirical-based approach which shows how local knowledge repositories are a basis for developing and adopting farming practices which are locally relevant in building climate resilience. So what we mean by that is, under the CSV approach, what is crucial is to identify what the farmers have been doing themselves as they adapt to climate change, and as they are doing so within the broad framework of the climate smart agriculture approach. And once you identify what they've been doing themselves, you then build on that to further enhance their resilience capacity. So in practice, in actual farming practice, what does the CSV approach entail? It is premised on sustainable intensification of crop production that can support climate change resilience based on the following. Obviously, the implementation of conservation agriculture so as to maintain healthy soils and manage water efficiently. I think one of the colleagues spoke at length about conservation agriculture. Another colleague also spoke at length about water management strategies. So we are saying under the CSV approach, there are local conservation agriculture practices that communities are using, and there are water management techniques that communities are using that can be enhanced to increase their on-farm productivity. Further, we're saying there is a need to continue to encourage the use of well-adapted quality seed varieties, which are not just drought tolerant, but also socially acceptable. Because it is one thing to have a drought tolerant seed variety, but it is not, if it is not socially acceptable in a particular community, then it doesn't serve any purpose when it comes to their food access. And we're also arguing that there should be an emphasis on the use of integrated pest management practices within these communities. And what we mean by that is the pest management practices must not just be purely based on industrially manufactured herbicides, but they are local practices that communities use to deal with particular pests, and we're saying those must be integrated with industrially manufactured herbicides. Then in terms of climate smart livestock production, what are we arguing under the CSV approach? We're saying that there is a need to build on particular breeds, livestock breeds that are already there in the community. Like one of the most popular livestock cattle breeds in the area of study that we're working on is the Nguni cattle breed. This is a very well-known breed in Southern Africa. It can exist in extremely dry conditions because it doesn't need a lot of rangeland to survive, and it can go for a couple of days without having access to adequate water. So we're saying this is a livestock breed that is being kept in the communities that we're working on, and so that must be supported so that communities can continue to grow their cattle in numbers, but focusing on this particular Nguni cattle breed. And secondly, we're saying small livestock is an option as well. Small livestock is an option, particularly sheep and goats. Because as we know, these also can easily survive in a very, very hot conditions. And thirdly, we're saying under the CSV, there is a need to do regular grassland restoration and management by the communities themselves, because they are in charge of their own grazing practices. So they know how to manage different rangelands at any given time of the year. So within that context, what then is the way forward? What is the way forward? So this is my conclusion. What is the way forward? So in conclusion, we're arguing that given that adaptation and resilience happens at a local level, at a local farming level, it is therefore logical to begin to understand the strategies already being implemented by local farmers within the prevailing climate realities. Such a local focus is more practical because attempting to do so at national level is a bit unrealistic given the differences in local environments and complexity of countrywide but locally determined resilience strategies. And this emphasis on local farmer realities and actions is, however, not a call to discard or ignore the active participation of government entities and scientists in the enhancements of adaptation and resilience strategies. Rather, it is a way of acknowledging farmers as active adaptation agents, while at the same time advancing their resilience knowledge and practices, which have potential to be enhanced for effectiveness through further research and development by scientists, as well as through technical support and funding by government entities. And lastly, we're arguing that this symbiosis between farmers, scientists, and the government is an integrated research and development approach with real potential to build sustainable resilience. Its strength lies in that it integrates diverse knowledge systems in the process of co-producing knowledge for locally relevant enhanced adaptation and resilience. I will end there. I thank you.
Thank you very much. We have time for a few questions. Any takes on this? Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. My question is, what is the objective of the carbon tax? Does it necessarily reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or would it not result in reduction in activity, for that matter? I'm comparing with a phenomenon in Kenya where a few times we have increased taxes on commodities with the intention of generating more revenue, but instead the commodities are shunned, we go for something else, and then we don't collect the revenue. So in this case, what's the objective, and have you checked if you will achieve the objective? Thank you.
Thank you. My question is about how would you ensure that the farmer would continue with the practices in the long term? So it's very good that they've been instilled to follow, those practices. But what kind of mechanism is there in the system for them to continue practicing the way that they have started? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thanks. The carbon tax is designed to encourage big corporates, big industrial manufacturing companies, even your airlines, to begin to take the reduction of emissions seriously. So in essence, it is designed to make sure that those who continue to increase emissions are taxed highly so that they change their behavior and begin to reduce their emissions. That is the essence of it. And the way it is crafted is such that the money that is going to be raised through that is also going to be used for a variety of adaptation and resilience activities across the country. But obviously it has been a subject of debate extensively, with corporates on the one hand arguing that it is rather a punitive tax which is going to directly affect their bottom line as businesses. Whilst on the other hand, we have climate activists who are arguing that the carbon tax doesn't go far enough in terms of penalizing these big corporates that continue to emit so much greenhouse gases. So there is that debate which is still raging right now, but it is low now. So what we're waiting for as time goes by is to see how this methodology that's going to be developed by the Department of Environmental Affairs will lead to very clear enforcement of the act, because as of now, it's not yet clear how this is going to be enforced. And then the second question, how do you ensure that farmers continue to do this? The beauty of core knowledge production and core practice formulation is that you allow the farmers to be part of the process. So as I explained, the way we developed the CSV was in partnership, in collaboration with the farmers themselves. So we co-produced the customized CSV model with them. So in that sense, they co-own the model, is their model as well. So it's not a model that we imposed on them. No, we developed it together. So on that basis, we believe it will be sustainable and they will continue to use it as long as it continues to guarantee crop productivity and the subsistence of their small livestock.
Thank you very much. Anyone with any burning issues? If not, I think we've done extraordinarily well. We've had some wonderful presentations on highlights of success stories and innovation solutions, but we can't hear. Apologize for our IT system, but it's a work in progress. I'm saying we've had some amazing presentations, and Professor Sudial was asking how we are going to get these amazing presentations translated or discussed by academies and then get them to policy. But I think, this we can discuss some other time. We're not quite ready for lunch. So, and since we're trying to make time, we can do one more presentation. And I think we've talked to Dr. John Phillips Borite, and he's willing to give his presentation now. So if you can, then that would be wonderful. Then we'll have one more out of the way before lunch. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Very much. Is this working? Can you hear me?
Yes.
The consultation with me to present now took place when you said it, but so I am speaking out of turn, but I'm glad to do that. I was not here the first day of your meeting, and so I really would like to say the sincere thank you to NASAC for inviting me to these programs. It's extraordinarily valuable. It's a long partnership now. It's great to see many friends from several years of Asadi and now several years post Asadi. I bring the greetings from the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine, and I'll say a little more about how our family and what I think is the importance of broad engagement of expertise across all those disciplines. But our organizations really care a lot about this relationship with our partners in Africa. We're in this for a long time, and one of the things that I'll be looking for, we are looking for, is okay, where do we go from here? So this is a very valuable event for us, and has already given us opportunity to talk to a lot of the people here. The presentations have been tremendous. This session, previous sessions, everything that I had been prepared to say is already illustrated in one way or another by one or more of the presentations. So I will say some of those things anyway, because I think they're very important. But it's really, really interesting for me to see the variety of ways in which you and your communities have already are really engaging in these. So a few things. In the United States, our academies, as you may know, have a long history of formal advice to our government, and that continues. We do about 80 or so formal advisory projects each year, and we've worked a lot with our Saudi partners on how you do that in a way that is really credible, that's high quality, that's reviewed, that involves top-level expertise of the full range needed to address the question, and has high impact. What has been changing, though, is in addition to that formal advisory work, over the last 10 or 15 years, we've seen a huge growth in what we do that reflects many things that you've been talking about, and that is what I'd call a whole family of activities that is convening. That is, rather than, or in addition to the formal advisory work where the government, largely, the government asks us a question, and then there's a real arm's length between our process and the government sponsors so that it's clearly independent advice. Convening activities, on the other hand, have everybody at the same table. Government at various levels, often municipal governments, state governments, private sector extensively. Our Academy of Engineering has about half of its members are from the private sector, and we extensively bring the private sector together with subject expertise of all sorts. One of my favorite numbers to sort of explain what our world is although our 3 academies have something over 5,000 members, we need so much broad expertise and credibility in these convening and advisory activities that only 20% of the people who appointed to our committees, either to organize advisory, perform advice, or convening activities, only 20% are members of any of our 3 academies. So that means that we have literally thousands of experts drawn from other sources, the private sector, many people from other countries. So what many of you have talked about, and I think absolutely correctly, you've talked about particular ways in which stakeholders, it's one of the terms that you've been used, stakeholders are convened around major issues. For us, that is absolutely essential, and it's growing very rapidly. And for our government, in fact, they benefit even within the government from these convening activities. We're a big government. We've got big departments. They don't have sufficient ways even to talk among themselves. And so I congratulate those presentations that have really emphasized this convening role and how to deal with these complex questions. You need a lot of the players actively involved, and very much local communities and those directly involved. So that's a general point. A couple of spin-offs from that. Another point that's been made very extensively here is that the Sustainable Development Goals are include almost everything you can think of. As you know, they're very broad. They're very large numbers of goals and sub-goals and targets. But it's more than that, or less, looking at however you look at it, because it's a systems challenge. Various speakers have made the point better than I can that there is extensive interaction between achieving these various goals. So for us, the engagement of engineers who, the discipline of systems analysis is, we put it in the engineering category. We see that pervasive aspect of what we do, where we're looking at a big question, whether it's has to do with energy, climate change, adaptation, public health, and so on. We have a great need for an ability to understand the interacting elements of reaching these goals and finding ways forward that are multiple, that benefit several of the goals. And some of those ways forward are completely obvious. For example, energy efficiency, just within energy cost, has for many years been the low-hanging fruit in terms of more investment. It's the best return on investment in the engineering field, in the energy field, but it has multiple benefits. It has multiple benefits in terms of new technology development, in terms of new jobs, in terms of decreasing environmental impacts and so on. But that's just one of the most obvious interactions among multiple sustainable development goals. And I've seen now from your presentations many examples of that. We think that you, in this particular AMASA meeting, are addressing what is probably the largest question of human welfare looking forward to the next few decades in the world, for reasons that many of you have made very clear. They're demographic, they are climate change, they are capacity needed. There's the huge challenge that of educating a population bulge of young people, and there's the point that's been made very, very starkly about early childhood and stunting. Of course, stunting is related to other things, and it's related to other needs of childhood to allow citizens to have successful, productive lives. In short, just like we are, you are a severe case of having to do everything at the same time. You must deal with early childhood, you must deal with education, primary, secondary, and advanced education. You have no choice but to try to do all those things at the same time, and it's an enormous challenge. One other, partly because of that challenge, we are acutely aware of how important, critical it is to engage early career people, women, men, across many disciplines, somehow in developing vision, in developing leadership skills, and in finding the areas of real advancement in terms of innovation and technology often are interdisciplinary frontiers. They're relatively new combinations, and they're pervasive in areas of health and environment and so on. Africa has done probably better than the rest of the world in terms of among this academy community, in creating young academies. That we think is terrifically important. It really, you need a group that recognize the need for innovation, for leadership, and for connecting across various disciplines. So I think you've got congratulations to those of your countries, many of yours, who have taken serious steps to really get younger people involved. And I think that's going to be terrifically important. I think NASAC is important for many, many reasons, but one of them, of course, is the wide diversity of countries of Africa. Some of them very large in terms of population, in terms of human high-level training, some relatively small countries with very broad capacity building needs, and I see terrific benefit to those in the cooperation that you have, and so I think NASAC is really a critical component to Africa meeting its needs. So again, congratulations to all of you. We are, well, I should say I had planned on writing this speech over lunch, so you're getting a from the shoulder version of it. We're interested in, okay, specifically what can we do together? And I've already had a chance to talk with some of you about one particular thing that fits very well in this picture that I've laid out, our perception. It's something that we have tremendous experience in. We don't have a young academy. We're kind of different in that sense. But what we have been doing for 25 years is mobilizing early career leaders in an interdisciplinary way through a particular mechanism that we call Frontiers. And this has been going on, as I say, for well over 2 decades. Many of the leaders of American science and engineering and medicine have participated in this. Steve Chu was one of the very first organizers of, as an example, the Nobel Prize-winning physicist and energy expert. The Frontiers, we've had Frontiers of Science and Frontiers of Engineering within the United States, but we've had also now for 20 years, we've been running this program in cooperation with other countries. Largely, it's been the most advanced countries. They've come to us and said, we want to do this, starting with Germany, China, Japan, many of the European countries. But what we haven't done very well until we started a few years ago was implement these kinds of programs in the areas where I think actually the value would be the greatest. And frankly, that's in our relationship with Africa and in our relationship in the Americas. And we took one step several years ago in starting a new version of this, which is the Arab American Frontiers of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. So it's really quite focused on the particular urgent needs in the Arab countries, which, as you know, includes some of you, but it's the usual suspects. It's energy and water and the challenges of climate change and so on. From this meeting, I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Cairo for the 7th of these. They are wildly successful. They bring together about 100 young people, early career leaders. In this case, approximately half from the U.S., approximately half from across the many Arab countries. The ones from the U.S. often include a good number of really outstanding diaspora from the Arab countries. And this is a process of completely run by the young leaders. Typically a committee of 10 of them plan the event in great detail, and as it actually occurs, it's about a 3-day intensive, interactive, interdisciplinary process leading to focus of expertise of various ways on major challenges. And it's been extensively reviewed. We have many feedbacks from many years of this kind of program, and it's I think it's a very powerful tool. We would love to do that with partners in Africa. Like everything else, whatever we do, we have to find the funds for. But we have been managing to do that in other cases. The Arab American frontiers is an example. We'd be very interested and very flexible in terms of how that might go. One thought that we've talked to some of our friends about is possible regional frontiers events in Africa, for example, East Africa, West Africa, Southern Africa, whatever. So I just give that as an example of something that we think can contribute to. It's a very flexible tool because it can choose the particular frontiers that it wants to look at in whatever sort of interdisciplinary frontiers. And we do, in the past, have been able to fund follow-on individual visits of a modest number of people who want to turn some of their ideas that they come up with during these frontiers events into concrete proposals to, for example, our NSF or NIH or USAID or whatever. So that's perhaps more than you need to know about frontiers, but I do think it's an example of something that has been very powerful internationally. I should say it's not just us now. Our dear friends in Germany love this program, and they've generated their whole independent set of programs, and they may well have some with African counterparts. I've lost track of everything they're doing, and if so, that's great. That was an example of what we'd like to do. I should have said at the beginning that the initial invitee from, and you might have seen on an early program, was Lauren Alexander, who some of you know. I bring her greetings together with the rest of the national academies. She has moved on to a very big position, managing a very large program that essentially has to do with understanding the huge oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico, and the whole question of understanding the ecology, the recovery, the impact on communities, and so on. So she's a very busy person, but she sends her greetings, and I know she's a good friend of many of you. I perhaps should stop there, and I don't know if we're close enough to lunch. I'd be glad to take questions if you'd like.
Thank you very much for agreeing to accepting free lunch. Please, a few questions before lunch. Open for a few questions. I think we're probably reserving all our questions till after lunch. And after lunch, I have a big request to all the academies, how we are going to, process all this wonderful information through our systems to interact with at the national level and into policy. I think we need to address that issue. So without further ado, I think I'm between you and lunch. And so I'll give it to Francis for housekeeping. Thank you all very much to all the presenters. Thank you, Dr. Borat.
Thank you. So we are going back to Golden Tulip for lunch. We'll walk there and come back. If we make good time, we can finish earlier than we did yesterday, so that you can have a little time to yourselves before supper this evening at a different venue. We will be giving you evaluation forms, which we are hoping you will fill out and drop on the high table between now and when we close. In addition, we need to know the exact numbers of those who are able to join us for our 60th anniversary luncheon. So by the time you come back, I'll give you small sheets of paper. We need your name and a yes or no for proper planning of the event. So we crave your indulgence. Let us know whether you are able to attend the luncheon at 1 p.m. tomorrow or not. We'll do that when we come back. Thank you very much. We are coming back at 1:30 so that we can save time. It's about 12:30 now. So we still have an hour to. Of course, those of you representing your various academies for the General Assembly, we will go to the reception, the